back to the Lagos.
So the Asiwaju-led administration then, as the governor of Lagos, saw that there is a lot of encumbrance militating against the smooth running of the local government. Maybe some of them are too big in size, like Alimasho local government, very enormous, very highly populated. It's okay now. If we assign this duty to only one person, only one local government, let me have some area are not taken care of because of the cumbersome nature of the local government in Lagos. Then that device a means to have a development area. The Niger State Governor, A.A. Kuri, also have something similar. As at that time, he has like in Chanchaga local government, that is Mina West then. So it's for you to have the constitutionally recognized local government will now be split into 2 or 3 for easy administrative convenience. And all the 3 or the 2 splitted group will be referred to as development area. So that when the money comes, there will be a planning so that the development can reach nooks and crannies. That's he improvised a means to make sure that there is a development. Then he even create more space for him himself as a governor to spend more money on the state. And I'm telling you, people may beg to differ. Lagos State has been benefited immensely today from that particular policy, because that's why it's still the leading state in terms of development in Nigeria. Today they have a rail line that belongs to them. No state in Nigeria can be proud of such. They have one of the best traffic policy management in Nigeria. If you want to learn about how to manage traffic, you have to recourse to Lagos. When it comes to park and recreation, then the revenue generation drive, because you you put more men to the job.
Let's bring the conversation to Lagos again.
Yeah.
And away from Lagos taking the credits this time, it's on a corridor that's set to become the driving force for commercial activities along the coastal way, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. There have been some controversies following the
commissioning of 30 kilometers.
30 kilometers. There was an investigative report that said it was short, a few kilometers short of being 30. We saw the president again in Lagos at the Dangote refinery commissioning the roads adjoining the Lekki Deep Seaport and whatnot. Now, the Minister of Works, Engineer David Umahi, has reacted to that. He has asked the president to ignore critics and focus more legacy projects, in his words. It's also coming at a time when there's more controversy about the revocation of the approval of some reclaimed lands. This controversy surrounding Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, in your opinion, politically motivated, or should we take a listen to the Works Minister, Engineer David Umahi, who is saying the president should ignore criticism and just focus on the work?
That's why I said anything you want to do, let it be factual and database driven and historically fact backed. In the whole world, how many roads are being constructed that along a coastal plain that's up to 700 kilometers? If a man bring up a vision, you see, one thing we need to do is that in this country, if you really want to move forward, I don't want to know the face of who is doing it. If you are doing something purposeful, we should give you the backing.
But that investigative report actually showed measurements that it was not up to 30.
Let me now, if it's not up to 30, something has been done. And it's unprecedented. Even if it's 10 kilometers that somebody did. Let me give you an instance. Ibadan-Lagos Expressway is about 165. Ibadan to Lagos is about 165 kilometers. Since you and I were children, nobody has been able to complete that road to an international standard. Why? And somebody came up in 2 years out of 700. If you go, payloaders are still on the road, cement and concrete are still going. You understand? Even somebody said they should give him kilometer per kilometer cost because he's in a television studio. You understand? You want to have a kilometer per kilometer cost of what? Ibadan Lagos, since the military era, has been a project uncompleted. Now, this president said, let's move away from the past. Let me give you, why is Lagos Calabar making the airway? Why not Badagry Sokoto? Because that corridor is a corridor that will open Nigeria to a lot of immense way. 9 states will become megapolitan town because of, in the next 20 years, the state on those corridors, their life will never remain the same if that road is constructed, because the road is close to the Atlantic. And just like Lekki Deep Seaport has been developed, with the president and the Ministry of Blue Economy having been decoupled down to the state now, the one of the exclusive lists in terms of maritime, the state can also engage in building seaport on their shore. Now, if this road is constructed and Calabar port spring into life, people around the south and the southeast end of Nigeria can start using Calabar port as a source of movement, import and export of goods and services. So talking about Lagos has already given us the Dubai of our dream, the new Atlantic city. Is it the Lekki Fields? As I'm talking to you now, the biggest fertilizer blending company in Africa is in Lagos. The biggest single largest refinery in the world is in Lagos, and the biggest refinery probably in Africa is in Lagos today. So Lagos has already taken a trailblazer, and the man whose vision was it to drive Lagos to where it is today is at the saddle of our fear in Nigeria. We must borrow a leaf that maybe this man, anything he touch, that thing glitters. So let us find a way to rally around him so that the transformation that Lagos is witnessing today can be reverberate across the landscape of Nigeria. And I think the president have his eye on the ball, and with time, if all hands are to be on deck, that magic wand he waved in Lagos can also be seen across the length and breadth of Nigeria. I have that belief that all he needs is our prayers, all he needs is our support, so that he can take us to the promised land. And one thing in life is that you can't do it all. No man born of a woman can do it all. You can only try your best and leave the rest. And I think Asiwaju-led administration is showing the way on how to take Nigeria out of the doldrums, from the subsidy removal to the stabilization of the forest. And in fact, what was happening in the past was even forest subsidy, because you go to central bank, before you know, somebody will collect dollar at 300 naira, sell it in the market at 400 naira, and bam, they are billionaires. Then these are billionaires in shadow. It's not backed by work, it's not backed by productivity, it's just backed by naira speculation. And this type of economy is a false economy. What we are witnessing today, although painful, although very stressful, but it's the real economy. The earlier we face it and head on and find a way to navigate through it by supporting the president who is showing the way, the better for us. But if we say, because I don't like this man that's in charge, we continue to blame him, 2027 is around the corner. Let those people who really think they can do better go to the field and campaign and roll out their policy. At the other end, those people who are supporting the president too will come up with their own developmental plan that the president has been able to achieve. Look at what is happening in China, for instance. The technical education in China, it has revolutionized China. Every child today can make phone. The president has come to say technical school are free with stipend for the student in technical school. Is it not a drive in the right direction? Today we have a NEL fund, the student fund. If you cannot access fund, or you are of the vulnerable who cannot pay for school fees, this is a fund for you. About 55 billion so far has been disbursed to all the students. Now the disbursement has been made, and the students are in school paying their school fees with some stipend. And when you finish your program, you'll be given after your youth service, you're given 2 years to start the repayment after securing a job. And this president is still not doing the right thing. So if we concentrate on being a fault finder without providing solution as to how our nation will move forward, we will be throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and that is not going to augur well for any one of us. This is my
now let's come down to another issue, and this is not an issue with the presidency in focus. It's on the ongoing petrol price war. Petrol has been calling for what it calls healthy competitions. We're told by reports credited to the Daily Courier that 6 depots have further slashed their prices below the Dangote benchmark. Whilst Nigerians were applauding Dangote for providing alternatives, it almost seems as though this price war is going to be affecting the markets very soon. How do you see this ongoing price war?
Earlier when Mr. Sam was with us, I said it, that is your perspective. The most hydra-headed sector where our money is being siphoned was it. So the earlier the government back out of that business and allow the players to play.
But by backing out, do you mean NNPCL's handling it?
And NNPC is going private with time. That's what it means. We have limited on it. So let it be off the government regulation. Let it be.
But they continue to dub themselves as the sole importer of refined petroleum.
They are coming from a regulatory perspective, and you know that when you want to evolve, it's gradually. So as it's going private, some of the, like before we have DPR, now is a commission. We have so many other petroleum regulatory body, now they are now a commission. The commission is just to supervise. Those are have NCC doing with the telecoms. Now those commissions are there to just supervise and be a regulatory body. The NNPC is the marketing and the production of the petroleum sector. So now they will operate in like a privately owned, they will soon be on the stock exchange. Me and you can buy a share into it, and they will report to their shareholder on a yearly basis as to performance. Not that the way they do when they are in government. When that takes place, they will be operating like the Dangote of this world. Now, having said that, that's the way Shell, the total final health of this world, is it the Duke Oil? That's the way they operate. They are not under any government supervision. So now, when they are privatized, we will have what we have. When we started using MTN in the early 1999/2000, you knew how to get a SIM card. I have to travel all the way from Mina to Abuja here to buy a SIM card for 55,000 naira. Today, how much is a SIM card? So if you allow the player and all the investors to play their game, I'm telling you, before the end of 2020, before we get to 2027, if everything being normal, the fuel price will not be more than 500 or so. If it's in as its highest.
But in the interim, with these projections, the current reality on ground is almost seems as though I'm looking for the best analogy to paint it, because as it stands now, the only active refinery we have in Nigeria is the largest single train in Dangote refinery.
Yes.
The Port Harcourt refinery, which we were told was coming back on board, has suffered a setback. So has the Warri refinery. Now, if these depots are now in a price war with a refinery in itself, they are not refineries. Remember, they are depots.
Let me give you an instance of Dangote refinery. Dangote refinery should not be allowed a monopoly.
But what I'm asking is, do they have the staying power to go on with this war? Because
let me tell you,
he has a refinery, they are just depots.
When you have privatization, a private runs business want to make profit, no matter how little it is, they want to remain in business. And the discipline in private sector is different from the public sector. What Dangote is trying to do by building that refinery is to take over the entire market. The Nigerian market is too big for one-man monopoly. So the rivalry we are experiencing today, it is LD for our oil sector, so that Dangote too will not play the trick of monopoly, and the people that are at war with him will also be on that to keep their business relevant, because you cannot push them out of the market because you have built a refinery. As far as I'm concerned, Dangote must up his game. So he cannot hold us to a ransom too, because people must be there to put him on his toe. So the Dangote refinery coming on board is not because he loved Nigeria.
Now, we also have another guest joining us shortly. Let me just be sure that we have that correction, the connection in check. Mr. Simbo Olorunfemi is also going to be joining us virtually as he lends his thoughts to the issues in the news. Mr. Simbo, happy holidays and Barka de Sallah. Welcome to the conversation.
Sallah.
Well, thank you, sir. You are right on time as we're discussing the ongoing petrol price war. We're told that 6 depots have had to slash their prices below the Dangote benchmark. I was currently engaging Mr. Yusuf in our studio on the sustainability of this ongoing price war. It almost seems as though Dangote has an upper hand since he has the largest single train refinery, and the country has suffered setbacks in the coming on board and turnaround of the Port Harcourt and Warri refineries. I'd like to get your thoughts this morning. First off, on the sustainability of this ongoing price war, and secondly, who is benefiting the most from it?
Well, maybe let me start with the second leg of the question, and as who is benefiting. At the end of the day, when you have it's a free marketplace. So the moment competition sets in, I mean, there's fair competition, then it is the consumer who eventually benefits, and that's what it's supposed to be. That's the ideal, and that's the objective of that was set out in private or commercializing downstream operations. It's a free market. There's free entry, there's free exit. So prices are supposed to be set based on forces of demand and supply, and I think that's what's going on in the place now. Whether products are imported into the market or produced locally, it's a free marketplace, and everybody is free to compete freely with your price. So what you find out playing out people talk about price discovery, but then don't forget there are variables that no one has control over. There is the international market price of crude, and that comes into play when you determine price. So as long as price of crude in the international market keeps coming down, there's a likelihood that the price for refined products would eventually come down. And I think what we are witnessing right now is a reflection of what is playing out in the international market price for crude. And I think that's good enough for us consumers. As long as the price comes down, it benefits us.
Now,
Mr. Talking about sustainability, okay.
Yes, please, the sustainability part, because Dangote seems to have the advantage as a producer and a player in the market, whilst the depots depend largely on import and probably supply also from Dangote. Do you see them being able to sustain this price war going against the refinery owner?
No, I don't see it as a war, really. It's not a war. I think nobody will set below the purchase price or production price. So I don't see Dangote eventually going so low that it will not be able to recover its cost. Then the marketers as well, I don't see them being able to buying product from sourcing product either from Dangote or from refiners abroad and selling below their price. Like I said, some will say this is it's a function of price discovery. There's a certain level at which both Dangote and all the other people, the marketers who are bringing products from abroad, will not be able to go below. So there is really nothing to be afraid, nothing to get worried about. Just let things play out by itself, and eventually, as long as nobody is manipulating pricing and all of that, nobody's trying to get another percent out of the market, it's okay. Things will sort itself out by itself. That's the essence of free markets economy.
Now, Mr. Simbo, let's also talk about the role of the NNPCL. A question I threw earlier to our guest in the studio, Mr. Yusuf. The NNPCL has always remained sort of a regulator in terms of price fixing. Although their templates have changed in the last couple of months several times to reflect some of these ongoing price differentials, many Nigerians are asking that they leave the playing field, not partaking in it, but on the sides of just being more or less the regulator that they ought to be. What do you see the NNPCL's role changing under Engineer Bayo Ojulari? Should it change? Should they yield to this call from Nigerians on how best to play the game?
No, I think there's a mix of there. The era which NNPC played was both a regulator and a player and operator. It's gone behind us. With the PIA, NNPC is just a player. It's just another player in the space. The regulator is different. You have different regulators. You have the NUPRC. You have the one that regulates for the downstream, the one that regulates for the midstream, and the one that regulates for the upstream. So NNPC is just a player. Or in fact, the mistake that most times come from the media is when NNPC fixes its price, the assumption is that NNPC is dictating to the market. No, NNPC is just another competitor in the marketplace. In fact, that part of it that trades it's just the NNPC trading. NNPC that trades at the downstream level that announces its own price at which consumers can get price from their retail outlets. So they are not into the business of regulation. The regulator is different. NNPC is regulated just as other operators in the downstream space are regulated. So the question of them fixing price and all of that does not arise at all.
Now, Mr. Simbo, it's also on having a reflective pump price with the ongoing slashes. I know at the start of the year, there was so much applause when Dangote did it. Now more depots are taking a cue, but it hasn't really changed the margins at the pump price. Mr. Yusuf was of the opinion that we should have a pump price there about 500 per litre before the end of the year if this healthy competition goes on. What are some of your projections in that regard?
I think that's been to
2027. I said
2027.
2027.
Okay, he's changed his position on that. He's saying 2027.
I said 2027.
Oh, well, that's a prayer. I would say that's a prayer. Yeah. In the sense that maybe what he's looking at is that Naira would have regained value Because those are that's
variables.
a major variable. The exchange rate is a major variable in this mix. So if naira appreciates maybe to the point of like maybe 800 naira
or 1,000,
then why not? We can have retail price at about 500 as a projected. But are we likely to get to that point? I think the fair value of naira is projected to be around 1,200 thereabout. So I think that's the best. And if that happens, then we might find a situation where the retail price for petrol will come to about maybe about 650, 750. I think that I will stick with that. That's if naira regains its value.
Now, these projections are still benchmarked on the global price of oil. And quite sadly, it's also taking an effect on the 2025 budget of our nation, Nigeria, because the indices and the indicators are not at par with the current reality. The exchange rate, much like you've mentioned, is seemingly not complying. The global price was benchmarked at $75 per barrel, is now way below 65. What are your thoughts on this? How does this shape our planning and fiscal expenditure going into the year?
You see, that's the challenge we have. You can't have our cake having already eaten it. We are both producers and consumers. So as producers of oil selling to the international market, we want the price of oil to shoot up. We want it to go as high as over $100 an hour. But if that happens, it impacts us negatively. In the sense that it impacts us, there will be more revenue to the government, more money to be able to do things. But in terms of the price, retail price for petrol at the end of the day, that means it will shoot up. So right now, what we're benefiting from right now is the fact that the price of oil at the international market has come down. So as it's coming down, us as consumers, we're benefiting from it. But the moment it shoots up, we should prepare our mind. That means the retail price of refined petroleum products will eventually go up, because that's the major variable when it comes to fixing the price of refined petroleum.
Mr. Simbo, stay with us. I'll come back to you in a bit. Let me come back to Mr. Yusuf in our studio. Now, Mr. Yusuf, the conversations around turnaround maintenance and the transparency in the downstream sector, particularly on the part of government, the humongous amounts that we're told has been injected into turning these refineries around, and yet up until today, there's very little conversations on how much products are churned out from these refineries that have been said to have been turned around. What's your honest assessment of where we are in that regard?
You know there is a lot of intrigues in the petroleum sector, and I said it earlier, the perspective. You see, when I said NNPC is a body that have about more than 40 SBU subsidiaries. So the one of the subsidiaries is the Warri refinery. One of the subsidiaries of NNPC is the Kaduna refinery. One of the is also the Port Harcourt refinery. Now, as I'm talking to you now, this refinery have been obsolete over the year. No government has come as able to make that sector transparent, and so that we can get what is really happening. But the challenge that came to town now was the inception of the Dangote refinery. That's why the competition is LD for. So the government, there is an peak, a very dark transaction going on in the NNPC, and by and large, with the way both Buhari-led administration and this current administration has handled the issue, leading up to us to the PIB, the Petroleum Industry Bill, has come to solve that problem, and that's why the building of Dangote refinery has put them on their toe. Now, the major problem has been the subsidy regime. Is want to make the refinery obsolete, because when you know that you can extract the juice and you'll be brought home. Why do you want to go to farm and be looking for the fruits that will, since the juice, you have the juice in a container at home? But one thing that some people don't know, we don't seem to know, is that the government space in Nigeria is very porous. When the NNPC was under the government, it was just managed like a government entity. Now that the private sector and license has been granted to so many other refineries, the moment they come on board, NNPC itself now is a private entity, as the last contributor has clearly said that they are now a player in the sector. And even when they fully go private, you will not have a choice than the refinery to be set up. So in recent time, both the Port Harcourt and the Warri have been really giving a serious facelift. And you can see the president simultaneously changing both the NNPC and the governing board of the NNPC to give it more fresh hands so that they can. Now, let's wait and see what they are coming up with.
The question is on how long we need to wait. Let me pose that question to Mr. Simbo.
There's a new sheriff in town, and you must look at the way it was handled. Look at the subsidy regime. If Asiwaju did not come out and declare subsidy gone and stay with it, by up to now we should have been still been in the subsidy regime. So
now, Mr. Simbo, care to make a reaction to Mr. Yusuf's position? He's talked about giving more time to see where we go in terms of the new management of the NNPCL and the turnaround of our local refineries. What's your take on this? How much more time can Nigerians afford to wait for?
Yes, I'd like to align my thoughts with his. I had the privilege of visiting the Port Harcourt refinery after I started operations tail end of last year. And I saw, the level of work that was putting into being able to get that refinery that has been down for so long back on stream. And I was in a company of engineers, chemical engineers, and experts who marveled at the level of work that has been done. And even though it just started operations at maybe I think capacity utilization was about 40% or thereabout, and they expected for it to scale down. I think they said they had to shut it down present for some maintenance, because it's when a machinery of that at that level begins operation, you might begin to see some faults that you might need to quickly attend to. That might be what's exclusive for why it's the maintenance work. But then more importantly, there's a second, there are two refineries in the company. There's 60,000 BPD, then there's 150,000, which work is ongoing at that massive rehabilitation work going on that place. And I think eventually we can't say, because even the people working on it can't categorically tell you that this is the end point, this is where, but it's important that we get those two refineries working, including the Warri refinery and Kaduna refinery. Like the previous speaker said, even though NNPC has a role to play as another player in the sector, but beyond that, NNPC is in that space to guarantee energy security, so that Nigeria is not a country of over 200 million, is not solely dependent on just one refinery. But of course, that there are so many other modular refiners who are
coming up.
Who are coming up as well. So it means we should just let this space play out. I'm positive that with the new management at the helm of affairs at NNPC, soon both the Port Harcourt refineries, the Warri refinery and Kaduna refinery would fully come on stream, and Nigerians will be better for it.
Now, on the issue of privatization, speaking recently, Alhaji Aliko Dangote bemoaned the delay in which he received the support of government in the flag off of the largest single train refinery. He says that successive governments had served as barriers in that quest to have more private persons like himself come into the field. Do you think that we should have, before now, created that room for privatization, since the government had quite the challenges in turning these refineries around?
Okay, let's talk about the privatization of the Port Harcourt. And you will recollect that at the tail end of the Obasanjo administration, the Port Harcourt refinery was actually sold to the Blue Star consortium, the consortium that had Aliko Dangote, Femi Tedola as part of that consortium. But that privatization exercise was, Labour and some other people in society were not happy with that exercise, and that was overturned by the Yar'Adua regime. So we lost that opportunity, and so eventually Dangote had to start something on his own. And but don't forget that starting from the Obasanjo administration, a number of people were given licenses to set up refineries, and most of them would not see it through.
Now, on those licenses, we saw Alhaji Aliko Dangote in court as well, and before now he was claiming certain damages, saying that the issuance of licenses does hurt his business and was not part of the earlier agreed upon time in the coming on board of his refinery. I don't know if opinions have changed in that way.
You're talking about two different licenses, but let me just explain. The license I was talking about, license to set up refinery, but the license is talking about is license
to import. Yes.
You see, what is a complicated matter. Don't forget that when the refineries stopped working years ago, where before when refineries were working full steam, we had these 440 over 400,000 barrels of crude that were allocated to be refined in the refineries. And when the refineries stopped working, the NNPC entered an arrangement where they traded the bulk of this crude for products. They had what's called the DSDP, where products were, so you're taking crude and bringing products. And because of that, there's a whole lot of ecosystem that have been set up around bringing refined products. You have tank farms, you have all of that. So, an elaborate ecosystem that you're not just going to be able to wipe off overnight because you now have a local refinery work. So, the challenge that the Dangote arrangement had was that, don't forget that at the most critical point when Dangote refinery was struggling to see its operation to the point of production, there was an investment of $1 billion by NNPC. And there was an agreement around, which was about like, you use part of that to swap, first invest, I think it was supposed to be $2.6 billion, $1 billion that paid in. And the other part of it was supposed to be used, there was supposed to be like a swap arrangement whereby the Dangote refinery was guaranteed about 300,000 barrels of crude per day. But the challenge with that arrangement is that production capacity in the upstream is already clearly weakened because a lot of things happening and vandalization and all of that. And apart from that, the NNPC refineries themselves are coming on stream. Then you have some of the modular refineries. So it becomes really difficult to live up to that agreement. So that was what led to the crisis that we witnessed at the point in time, because Dangote was expecting that that agreement would be kept so that it can get regular supply of crude. Then another aspect, Dangote was expecting that since he's now producing products and servicing the downstream, wetting the market in Nigeria, then there will be a stop to people bringing products into the market, and that's the licensing was complaining about. Was complaining that people should not be licensed to bring in products again. But the argument by the regulator is that we cannot entrust the whole space to just a single operator, and in any case, the production capacity of Dangote refinery is not enough to meet the local demand. So that is what the problem is.
Well, thank you, Mr. Simbo, for shedding more light in that regard. I'll come back to you in a bit. Let me come back to Mr. Yusuf. Mr. Yusuf, Mr. Simbo has laid the foundation of alternatives that had been explored before now to optimize Nigeria's downstream sector. Yeah. In going forward, the federal government had also talked about the Naira for crude deal. Yeah. I, for one, thought it would be a breath of fresh air, owing to the fact that would not be depending on the exchange rate and probably not even the global price of crude. Yeah. But down the line, it seems not to have been the case. It took another re-energized efforts to get that deal back on track, because the timeline set for the first batch had expired. How crucial do you think the Naira for crude deal is? Is it the game changer? Would it bring about some interdependence based on global crude oil prices?
You see, the problem is that if you do not know the depths of operational modus operandi in the oil sector, say something of, because there are a lot of things that go on. For instance, the exploration of the crude, the machines, the expertise operate in a dollarized environment. And the technical know-how on how to even bring out this crude from the soil is dollarized. Most of the workers in that sector
the remuneration for workers, I agree with
everything is, they have a standard.
The machineries in terms of...
They have a standard. You are talking about Shell, you are talking about Chevron, you are talking about Total, who people do the exploration. When they do this exploration and they bring it out, just like you mining a gold, then when the gold is out, they have a standardized price for a particular quantum. Now, that standardization is what affects all other facets or all other sector of the oil down. So that's why they have the NNPC is the largest oil entity in the sub-Saharan Africa. And the way they operate across the SBU, even the salary model of their staff have the Organization of Petroleum Countries standard, like the Petrobras, the Aramco of this world. They have the way they operate in that sector. Now, if you get a product at a very exorbitant price, because you want to manage a particular population of Nigerians who are the owners, or even the rent seeking from the community, the derivation from the oil, those are enormous money derivation. Then a lot of insecurity that you have to tackle to bring out this thing. When you now take it to the market, they have a standard. Like OPEC have a standard for at which you will sell your crude. Now, because we want to serve the Nigerian space, we have an arrangement. That is telling government to lose some money if we want to be factual to us.
So you think these factors might mitigate against it?
No, I'm just giving you, even when the government has said naira for crude, it's just like now, a barrel of crude is $50 per barrel. Now, if you want to equate $50 to a Nigerian naira, how much is it? Now the government have to sacrifice a portion
of their income.
Of their income to make sure that it can be sold in naira. When it's sold in naira, now we have removed the constraint that the forest will bring it. That's why we go naira.
But it will still affect government's revenue.
It must surely do, because
I'll come to you. We're running short on time.
We are not running at the standard at which it was benchmarked in that petroleum sector.
Now, Mr. Simbo, Mr. Yusuf has quite brilliantly laid the foundation talking about standardization and what the government might lose in the Naira for crude deal. Do you see this as some of the mitigating factors as to why the Naira for crude deal has not, would I say, really affected the playing field?
No. It's actually the Naira for crude deal is what has stabilized, is what has kept the Dangote thing going. Because you see, like the other speakers, Mr. Yusuf has said, it's all about stability. Because what the Naira for crude arrangement does is to protect the deal from the variation the variation in the foreign exchange market. You never can tell what they do. You never can tell what the exchange rate will be next. But with this kind of a deal in place, it guarantees that within that window, you'll be able to get your crude for a certain price, and it will not be affected by variation in the foreign exchange market. And I think it's good. Of course, government gets to take a beating in terms of slight loss of revenue, but at the end of the day, it's about serving the interests of Nigerians. If that's what's going to be able to get Dangote refinery working, get the refinery working, because it's not just. Don't forget that Dangote refinery working is not just about the company making profit. It's beneficial to us in more ways than one. We have people working there, even bragging rights. We're able to even export refined products. There are so many gains that come on account of that. And in any case, if this would be able to get us products at the pump level at a slightly lower price than it could have been if we were operating strictly on a dollarized environment, then good. I think it's
in terms of giving strength to the Naira, should there be a timeline on how long this deal should last and what translatable outcomes Nigerians should expect at the end of it in terms of giving strength to the Naira?
No, I think we should keep it going. We should keep it going because this helps. We need the Naira strengthened, and the less pressure you have on the Naira, the better for us. And don't forget that this deal itself, I don't think it should apply to only Dangote. It should apply to other people in the space. And the moment we're able to have other refiners come into play, like all the NMPC refineries begin operation, then Dangote can now focus more on export of its products, and that would be of greater benefit
to foreign exchange.
Well, Mr. Simbo Olorunfemi, we thank you for taking our time on a holiday to lend your thoughts to issues on national discourse. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
And now to my very good friend, Mr. Yusuf Muyideen, we appreciate you as well. Thank you for your time on the program. Barka da Sallah.
I wish you the same. It's been a nice time today.